Have you ever felt like the hardest thing you face every single day is the voice inside your head? Not your boss, not traffic, not bills, just that small, relentless voice that keeps you from doing what you know is right. This is the story of a man named Daniel from Ohio who learned the cost of letting that voice run his life. It's a story about lies we tell ourselves, the slow poison of small compromises, and the quiet power of taking control. If you're tired of promises that never last, listen carefully. This could be the nudge you need. Because honesty and discipline are not sermons, they're muscles you build one decision at a time. And sometimes, one day, one choice changes everything. Stay with me. This is a story you'll want to feel, not just hear. Daniel was 33 and lived in a small suburb of Cleveland. He worked as a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing plant, a steady job that paid the bills but left him tired most nights. He had a wife, Maria, and a 7-year-old daughter, Lily, and they rented a modest house with a tiny backyard. On paper, his life looked ordinary and safe, the kind of life people said to be grateful for. But inside, Daniel carried a quiet restlessness and a list of things he promised himself he would fix someday. He wanted to be dependable, to stop feeling like he was always a step behind, but his mind kept finding excuses. Small compromises had become a pattern. A skipped promise here, a half-truth there, a postponed dream, always waiting. He didn't see himself as a liar or a failure. He saw himself as a man with too many plates spinning. Every morning, Daniel told himself he would be awake before the kids, do some reading, and go to the gym. The alarm chimed. His mind whispered, just 5 more minutes, and the 5 became 30, then an hour. By the time he got to work, he rushed through tasks and felt defeated before noon, blaming traffic, the workload, or a bad night's sleep. At lunch, he scrolled on his phone instead of using that time to plan, learn, or rest with purpose. At home, he promised Maria they'd save for a small family trip, but when bills came, he made excuses and slid the savings forward. Small lies started sounding normal. I'll start Monday. I forgot to call. I'll fix it later. And those small lies carved out a space where his dreams and integrity used to be. He kept thinking he would tighten his routines next week, next month, until next became never. Daniel was a good worker by technical standards. He fixed machines, supervised teams, and knew the job well. But at night, when he lay awake, a different problem ate at him. He had started fudging small reports to make numbers look better. It began like a quiet experiment. Nobody would notice a half-hour adjustment here, a slightly rounded figure there. It made him feel clever, like he was rescuing his team from consequences. But it also taught his mind how to bend truth when convenient. He told himself it was harmless, a way to protect the workers and keep production smooth. But the truth has a way of teeth. Secrets, even tiny ones, gather weight. They change the way you see yourself in the mirror. And the more Daniel adjusted the numbers, the less he trusted his own decisions. That doubt crept into his home life too. He found himself hiding small things from Maria, afraid of her disappointment. One winter evening, a machine at the plant failed, and the line stopped. Daniel and his crew worked late into the night to get it back running. He was exhausted, hands cold, eyes burning from the fluorescent lights. When his supervisor asked for a progress report, Daniel reported the repairs as completed and the downtime as minimal. He wanted to avoid scrutiny and to save face. After all, he had made those little shifts in the numbers before. A week later, a safety inspector from corporate randomly audited the plant's logs and noticed the downtime didn't add up. They asked for Daniel's reports, and for the first time, he felt the room tilt under his feet. He had to explain why the numbers were smoothed over. He had to lie through a smile until it felt like something foreign in his mouth. The inspector left with a note and a quiet warning, and Daniel slept that night with the stone in his chest.
At home, the toll showed in small ways. Maria noticed he was more distracted, snapping at Lily for small things, missing weekend plans he had promised. One night, Lily asked Daniel if they would ever go to the lake like they used to, and he saw hope in her eyes that felt like a stab. He wanted to promise it, but his mind raced with the plant's pending investigation and the fear of losing their rental if something worse happened. Instead, he said, Not this summer, kiddo. Maybe next year. His voice sounded paper-thin, even to him. Maria watched him lie, and the distance between them grew a little. She didn't accuse, she worried silently, and wondered which Daniel she had married. Every small untruth at work now echoed at home, and the trust he had with his family began to fray. He realized honesty with his family would demand a reckoning he was not sure he could afford, but hiding the truth felt heavier than confessing it. The breaking point came on a Monday morning that felt like any other, except it wasn't. Daniel received a call before dawn. The company had escalated the audit and wanted a full review of maintenance logs going back months. He was told to come to HR at once. As he drove, every red light felt personal. He imagined his name on a final warning, a suspension, or worse, termination. At HR, the manager asked pointed questions and handed him the printed discrepancies. Daniel's palms sweated, his mouth went dry. Sitting there, with the fluorescent hum and the clock's tick, something shifted inside him. A glimpse of the man he had promised his daughter he would be. He thought of Lily's eyes, of Maria's quiet concern, of the steady, honest hands of his father who had taught him the value of a word. For the first time, the consequences were not hypothetical. They were right there, in black and white, threatening to rewrite everything. He had to choose: defend the small lies and fight a losing battle, or tell the truth and face immediate pain for the chance to rebuild. Daniel took a breath and said the simplest thing he had avoided for months. I made mistakes. I adjusted numbers. I lied. The admission felt like a release and a wound at the same time, like ripping off a bandage that had stuck to skin. HR paused, then leaned forward. They appreciated honesty, but reminded him of the seriousness of falsifying records. There were protocols, investigations, and possible penalties. He could feel fear boiling up, but alongside it, a strange calm he hadn't felt in years. Speaking the truth aligned something inside him. He explained why: pressure from above, a desire to protect shifts and jobs, fear of blame, but he also owned the choice as his own. Maria later told me she had never been more afraid and more proud at the same time when she heard he had confessed. Confession did not mean the consequences disappeared, but it opened a door he had closed for too long. The next few weeks were hard. Daniel was suspended during the investigation. The plant continued without him. His paycheck stopped for a period, and their savings took a hit. Neighbors whispered, co-workers avoided extended eye contact, and Daniel felt the sting of judgment like cold rain. But in the quiet of their living room, after Lily fell asleep and the house hummed with gentle light, something else grew: connection. Maria, though scared, held his hand and said, "We'll figure this out together." Lily made a drawing with a big heart and the words, "Daddy Brave," scribbled across it. Those small acts of love strengthened him in ways the paycheck never could. He began to see the cost of being dishonest wasn't just external. It had eaten away at his sense of self. He took temporary odd jobs, fixed a neighbor's fence, and did anything to keep the bills moving. Each honest dollar felt like a little patch on their damaged roof. He wrote down a promise on a torn receipt: no more bending truth. Start with the small things. He put it on the fridge.
Daniel realized discipline would not arrive by willpower alone. It needed structure. He made a list of small rules and kept them simple. Wake with the alarm, read for 30 minutes, call Maria during lunch, and leave work at work. He stuck the list where he could see it. The first weeks were clumsy. He forgot. He slipped. He swore. He started again, but slowly the rules stuck like tape over cracks. He replaced scrolling with reading industry manuals and safety guides, learning things that made him better at his job honestly. He practiced small acts of truth, telling Maria when he was late, apologizing to a coworker, paying back a friend he had shorted. Each honest moment felt like muscle training. It did not change his whole life overnight, but it changed how he met the day. People began to notice, not because he announced a transformation, but because his tone when he apologized sounded different. It had weight and sincerity. He learned that discipline was not punishment. It was a steady loyalty to small promises he made to himself. And slowly, that loyalty translated into trust, first with Maria, then with others. A month into rebuilding, a test arrived, temptation dressed as opportunity. The plant manager offered Daniel a chance to come back early if he signed off on a report that would smooth the audit findings. It was the same old pressure, now with a clearer choice. Take the shortcut back to stability, or hold to the slow, honest path he had started. His mind raced with reasons to accept. One signature would mean a paycheck, less stress, and a return to normal. But the memory of Lily's drawing and the receipt on the fridge pulled him back. He remembered how hollow the quick fixes had felt, and how speaking the truth had, in its way, brought him closer to his family. He declined politely, explaining he wanted to come back on his own terms and be part of rebuilding trust, not bypassing it. The manager frowned, but respected the answer. It cost him time, but it bought something harder to buy: peace. Walking home that evening, Daniel felt small and proud at the same time, like a man who had refused a well-polished lie. When he returned, after a long review and community meetings with safety officers, Daniel was put on probation, but allowed back. He had to be transparent in every log, every decision, and report to a mentor for several months. It was humiliating at times. He felt he had to prove himself constantly. But he also felt something else. Respect earned the long way is stronger than respect taken by deceit. He started keeping a daily notebook of his work, what he did, why, who he spoke with, and what he learned. It became a tool and a confession at once, a place where he recorded truth and used it to grow. Coworkers slowly came around when they saw him own mistakes and correct them publicly. He learned to say, "I was wrong," without adding excuses. People began to ask his opinion again because it was reliable. Lily noticed when he came home with spare energy to play, not with a pretense of cheer hiding anxiety. Maria smiled more easily now. Trust, like a plant, needed water and time. Daniel learned there was dignity in slow recovery. It might not look glamorous, but it produced a sturdier life. He kept the receipt promise on the fridge for years, proof that small vows can outlast storms. One surprising part of his recovery was learning to quiet his mind. Maria suggested he try simple breathing exercises to manage stress and the urge to cut corners. He scoffed at first, thinking meditation was for others, not for a maintenance supervisor who got his hands dirty. But he tried it in the garage, 5 minutes before bed. Those minutes became a refuge where he watched the inner voice that once whispered excuses and learned to name it without obeying it. He called it the small liar, the voice that offered easy paths and quick fixes. Naming it made it weaker. He could hear it and decide not to follow. With breath and honesty, he built a habit of disciplined thought. He learned to ask himself 2 questions before any choice. Is this true? And will this matter in 5 years? The answers didn't always make choices easy, but they cleared fog and made decisions less reactive and more intentional. That small ritual protected him from impulsive moves that would have erased months of work.
A year later, the plant faced a real emergency. An older machine threatened to break and could injure someone if ignored for cost reasons. Management considered delaying repairs to save budget. Daniel remembered the old shortcuts and the price he had paid. He submitted a blunt report, recommending immediate shutdown for safety repairs, even though it would cost production time and draw criticism. The decision cost the company time and money that quarter, and a few managers grumbled at his straight answer. But the repair prevented what might have been a serious accident. Afterward, the CEO publicly commended the plant for preventing a serious incident and praised the team for their integrity. Daniel's report was read aloud as an example of responsible leadership. That moment was quiet but profound. It showed Daniel that honesty could be costly at first, but it also saves lives and builds reputations that last. He felt a quiet satisfaction, not from recognition, but from knowing he had not betrayed his word or his family. The plant's culture shifted a little. Honesty no longer felt naive, but practical and necessary. Back at home, the changes reflected in small but important ways. Lily started talking about honesty at school, proud that her dad had been brave. Maria took more nights off to rest because Daniel now shared chores without being asked. They planned a small trip to a nearby lake and actually saved for it, making every small sacrifice together. The trip was not extravagant, but sitting by the water with Maria and Lily, Daniel felt an unclenched ease he had not known in years. He realized the truth. Discipline and honesty were not punishments, but pathways to presence, being fully where he was with the people who mattered. He read to Lily about choices and courage. She asked questions he used to avoid, and he answered with stories he wished he had heard when he was young. Those moments mended the invisible thread that had frayed during the audit and suspension. Family trust, once cracked, can be repaired by consistent, honest acts. Daniel's life was not perfect, but it had a sturdier center now. Years later, Daniel would sometimes find himself in front of a mirror and remember the man who once smoothed numbers and smuggled small lies into reports. He hardly recognized him. The difference wasn't flashy, it was internal and steady, a sense of alignment between who he said he was and who he acted as. He had learned that identity is shaped by small, repeated choices, not single grand gestures. He started mentoring a younger coworker who showed the same signs of moral compromise he once had, and shared his story without sugarcoating. He told him about the receipt on the fridge and Lily's drawing, and how the small liar had once been convincing. The younger man listened, surprised that someone would be so honest about failure. He began to change little habits after that conversation, and Daniel felt something like redemption, not because he deserved it, but because his honesty had become useful. He realized true strength is not in never falling, but in choosing the path up every time. He had built a new muscle, the muscle of truth, and that muscle kept him steady when storms came because it had been trained by daily small tests. If there's one thing Daniel's story teaches us, it is simple. Control your mind before it controls you. Honesty begins with the small things, the 5 extra minutes in bed, the quick rounding of numbers, the little excuse that grows into a habit. Discipline is not punishment. It's the choice to honor the promises you make to yourself and to others. Start with tiny rules, keep them visible, and forgive yourself when you slip. Then get back to the practice. If your mind off is an easy lie, name it, breathe, and ask if it will matter next year. If it won't, let it go. If it will, choose the harder truth. The hardest battles are internal, but winning them change the shape of your life, your family, and the people you touch. So today, take one small step, tell one small truth, keep one plain promise, and hold your mind accountable like a loyal friend. Daniel's life did not become perfect overnight, but it became honest, steady, and real. He found his way back to being present for his daughter and partner, and he learned that the safest place to be is inside a life built on truth. If you're listening, you can start today. Choose the moment you won't lie about. Keep it. Build from there. Remember, the power to change begins with controlling one voice inside your mind, and that control leads to freedom, dignity, and deep, slow joy. Thank you for listening.
If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear that small choices matter. And if you like this, subscribe for more stories that show how simple acts of honesty and discipline change lives. Be honest, be disciplined, be present. That's where real strength is born.